Sheila Dodds, Acting Auditor General of BC. Thank you for joining me for a summary of our audit of Legal Aid BC's legal representation services. I'll welcome your questions afterwards. Before starting, I want to express my shock and sadness after what occurred in Vancouver this past weekend. I offer my deep sympathy and support for the many families, friends, and members of the Filipino community who are mourning the victims of this unprecedented tragedy. It is truly devastating. I hope that in time you find strength from the spirit of courage that Lapu-Lapu Day represents. The Office of the Auditor General also acknowledges that we live and work with gratitude and respect on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that our office is located on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen people of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. The report we delivered to the legislature today is a credit to our audit team's professionalism and dedication. The team includes Laura Hatt, Laura Pierce, Maxwell Edwards, Bradley Robinson, and Amy Carolyn. On the team's behalf, I also want to acknowledge the staff at Legal Aid BC for their cooperation with our audit. Legal Aid BC is essential to supporting fair and equitable access to our province's legal system. A Crown Corporation, Legal Aid BC provides advice and information about the law. It also offers legal representation services to people who can't afford a lawyer. Timely, high-quality legal representation can reduce time in custody, resolve cases faster, and protect people sooner, such as with restraining orders. Legal Aid BC uses contracted lawyers to provide legal representation. For the fiscal year ending March 2024, it had contracts with about 1,300 lawyers who represented clients in more than 30,000 cases of criminal law, family law, child protection, and immigration and refugee law. Between 2021-22 and 2023-24, demand for legal aid representation increased nearly 28%, measured by the number of contracts between Legal Aid BC and its lawyers. Our audit looked at whether Legal Aid BC had processes and information to ensure timely, high-quality legal representation. We concluded that it did not. Between April 2023 and August 2024, the audit team reviewed documents and files, analyzed data, and interviewed Legal Aid BC staff. We found deficiencies in how Legal Aid BC forecasts demand for legal services, determines the number of lawyers it needs, monitors the quality of legal representation it provides, oversees applications from clients, and responds to complaints about lawyers. I'll provide more detail. To determine its budget, Legal Aid BC based short and long-term funding needs on what demand had been in the previous year. But Legal Aid BC didn't account for the increase in demand that it's seen over the past 3 years and what that could mean for its long-term funding needs. As I mentioned earlier, Legal Aid BC relies on contracted lawyers to deliver its representation services. So we looked to see whether it had determined the number of lawyers it needs to meet demand. We saw that Legal Aid BC collected data on its roster of lawyers and had implemented initiatives to attract and retain more lawyers, but it had not determined the number of lawyers that it required to meet client needs. We also found that Legal Aid BC didn't measure or monitor the quality of the services provided by contracted lawyers. Because of that, it didn't have a clear picture of whether clients received high-quality representation. When we looked at how staff administered the client intake process, we found that Legal Aid BC didn't ensure staff followed policy or provided clients with a lawyer in a timely way. This presented a risk that applications wouldn't be properly assessed and that applicants could go without legal representation for extended times. And finally, we found that Legal Aid BC didn't address complaints from clients according to its policy. Its response to complaints included extra steps and delays that could discourage clients from pursuing their complaints, and no timelines were attached to complaint investigations. Our audit included 7 recommendations for Legal Aid BC. It accepted each recommendation and committed to implementing them. This audit, as with all of our performance audits, will become part of our annual follow-up work. I'll now turn it over to our moderator before I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Acting Auditor General. We are going to begin the Q&A portion of today's event. Media on the phone line, you may queue up to ask a question by pressing *1. and we ask that you limit your questions to one question and a follow-up, and then you may queue up after for additional questions. If you're looking for more information about the work of the Office of the Auditor General of BC, including our database of all our reports, please visit oag.bc.ca. We have no questions in the queue today, so if you'd like to arrange a phone or video interview with the Acting Auditor General, please call us at 250-419-6117 or email communications@bcauditor.com to book a time. You can also visit oag.bc.ca for more information. I want to thank everyone for coming today. This concludes today's media availability from the Office of the Auditor General of BC.